provide information that's going to make them think through the things they've never thought about. We try to give people the ability to have a simple solution in this very complex world we now live in. The company's called the Resource Center. The vision was to have a one-stop shop for insurance and financial services. When it comes to our customers, it's always better for a long-term relationship if you don't focus the first day on how much you're going to make and how good it's going to be on your sales quotas that week. That's the old captive agency approach that I hated, that 20 years ago I ran screaming for joy out the door. Our team works together. The service gets taken care of. The sales are natural. Every member of our team, we all have the same approach. And if there's ever a situation and I'm not around, I know there's people there that'll take care of it and do it exactly the way that I would do it. The year my dad died, from that date till the end of the year, I had 39 deaths in my office. And now everybody is calling 39 families. Hey, mom and dad said you're their financial guy. We need to come in. All right, come on in. What I was most proud of was the consistency in every plan. Consistently, everything was about the same. And it fits what our original tagline of our company was: simple solutions in a complex world. The objective I have is to just get up and make a difference.
Good morning, Rogersville. We are back once again with Dollars and Cents. Roy Rickstrew is back, disability advocate for third week in a row. Good to have you back, Roy.
I've got quite the string going, don't
Have you developed a following at this point, right? So we're going to continue our discussions about Social Security disability and who's eligible. One of the things that I think I've learned from you being here the past couple of weeks is, and I want to say this correctly, I think that more people are probably eligible for disability than realize it. There's probably a lot of people out there working jobs and they're in pain and they're hurting and struggling, not realizing that they have an option.
Yeah, that's correct. We had talked about that a little bit one time before, that $1,350 is what they suggest as substantial gainful activity. In other words, it's the point in which you are full-time competitively employed or the equivalent thereof. So I have a lot of people that make less than $1,350 a month, are still in the workforce, are struggling. Obviously, folks are doing what they're able, but they can still qualify. There still is an opening for disability.
Sure. And so once it comes to disability, what are kind of the next steps once we get into that process?
Once we get into the...
Well, so, we're looking at, you've got your big book with you today.
Oh, okay.
And, I keyed in on that right away. So where does that come into play?
Yeah, so when Social Security looks at the work that we've done in the past, they're trying to evaluate to see if we did the work long enough to have acquired any type of job skills. Of course, the work has to be complicated enough that there were skills involved. Some jobs there just simply aren't. People who put corks in wine bottles, for example, there's not a lot of skill there.
I don't know. There might be a skill to that.
Staying out of the bottle might be the skill.
Okay, maybe that's the skill.
But nonetheless, Social Security, they evaluate every job that a person has in their work history, and they compare it to this big book, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. And this thing is kind of a behemoth, and it was produced in 1973. In theory, it includes every job in the national economy, and it rates those jobs based on the strength level, based on the skill level, based on some educational factors as well. And Social Security classifies your job against this book. That way we're kind of using a standard. Everyone's envisioning your past work the same way. This and the companion publication, The Selected Characteristics of Occupations, then tells Social Security how much lifting, standing, reaching, crawling, environmental exposure, heat, humidity, so on and so forth was involved. And then they compare what you're able to do based on the requirements according to these two publications.
Well, let's say, back in the day, I was a pager repairman. I knew how to fix pagers and program them. How's that fit into the book?
Well, Will, we're going to show your age here to some extent. but there's no such creature as a pager repairman anymore. So yeah, there is a listing in the Dictionary of Occupational Titles for that type of a position: typewriter repairman, TV repairman, asbestos tile inspectors. There are some dinosaurs that still exist in this book, and the program, unfortunately, will still point people back to some of those jobs that are antiquated at this point. But a pager repairman likely be middle of the road, SVP, a skill level of 4 or 5, I would guess, and it'd be light work.
Now, I guess it would be different if I was a pager salesman.
Yeah, that's correct. And so the other side of that is similar type of product, similar knowledge base, if you will, but obviously the salesman's going to have a whole lot more personal interaction.
Okay. What if, when I was in my 20s, I was I'm trying to think of the right, something that requires a significant amount of strength and agility in my younger days, but now I'm in my 50s. So how does that play in?
Well, as we age, there's less opportunity that's available to us, and our age, of course, works as a vocational adversity. But, the job still exists. There are 50-year-olds that are doing whatever that strength and agility job was. Maybe they shouldn't be, but there are still people that are doing the job, so the classification remains the same.
Okay. Well, what else do we kind of need to know about that work history? What if they've got it wrong? What if...
Yeah, and I can give a couple examples of that. I had a good friend, Steve, and Steve was a nursing home inspector. And when the book was written way back in 1973, a nursing home inspector sat at a desk and they reviewed your smoke detector certifications, your sprinkler certifications, that your building was up to code, and they processed those, stamped it approved, and sent it on its merry way. Now, all these years later, after some nursing home fires, a nursing home inspector now goes out in the field.
Well, that makes sense.
They go out up on ladders into attics. They crawl underneath refrigeration equipment, look for mouse droppings, that type of very physical activity. Social Security came back and said Steve could go do a desk job. Well, Steve didn't do a desk job, and they got it wrong. So ultimately, we were able to get it fixed and get it resolved. So the book is a great guideline, but it's also really old and it's out of date in a lot of circumstances.
Well, and that's probably why it's important to have an advocate, somebody like you that understands the process of disability and how to work through those bumps in the road would be the way I would look at that.
Yeah, that's correct. And the thing is, when we're working, we get accustomed to telling people we're a painter, for example. And we all just assume that we know what painter means. And, everyone in the audience is probably thinking, well, of course I know what a painter is. Well, some painters are up on 40-foot ladders painting the second floor of houses. Some painters are painting porcelain figurines. And the skill set, the strength level, everything varies greatly. So when Social Security approaches you with questionnaires or forms asking about your work history, we got to make sure that we tell them. A lot of people assume that the government or Social Security is all-knowing, and that's just simply not the case. We have to instruct them a lot of times,
sure.
as you well know, Will.
Well, and they only know everything we don't want them to know. That's what they know, the stuff that we're trying to kind of keep on the down low, but then they do that anyway. So if people have questions, how can they reach out to you?
Well, of course, you can call the Resource Center directly, the 417-882-1800. I'm there usually 7:30 to 4:45, 5 o'clock, somewhere in that range most days. You can also come to one of our Disability 101 workshops. It's a great interaction ability for folks. Come in, it's about an hour session. We talk about tips, tricks, programs that are available, kind of give folks some guidance on how to avoid common missteps that derail claims. Want to make sure people get a fair shake. The seminar is geared towards trying to help make sure folks get a fair shake. Obviously, if you want to retain me as a representative, that's fantastic. If you want to come and take advantage of the free information and my 19 years of experience, come on down. We'll chat. It's real important to me, just like Bruce in the intro, that people get a fair shake and that we do things right.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us once again, Roy. Appreciate you being here. If you have questions, like he said, call them at the Resource Center, 417-882-1800, and we will be back with more K-ROG later in the week. Thanks for watching.
Take care, guys.
Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and the Resource Center, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet a particular need of an individual situation. The Resource Center, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this podcast shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by the Resource Center, Inc. This podcast is a paid placement.